Hi there everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joesephyr and welcome to another Should You Pull video for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. Now obviously I've got a new look and we've finally, for the first time in ages, managed to get the silver realness going on, which I haven't been able to have for a very long time, so I'm really chuffed to bits with that. And I'm actually here talking about another silver-haired fiend over on today's Should You Pull video, which is going to be about Setzer. Now I know what you're thinking. We don't actually know when Setzer's banner is, and we don't even know what's really going to be on there, whether regards to whether it's going to have Tidus BT, or Una BT, or no BT. We don't actually know anything about Setzer's banner or when it's going to arrive. But the reason that I thought I would release this video now is because, well, we don't know exactly, and it could come any time in the next couple of weeks, so I thought why not preempt it and make sure the information is there for everybody so that everyone knows when Setzer arrives, what exactly he does and why we should be pulling for him, as opposed to the triple BT banner, which I've struggled to find time to make a Should You Pull video for because I've been juggling 20 things all at once and I haven't been able to make a video for that, so I apologise for not having made a video for that. But we're going to talk about Setzer and why I'm releasing the video before like the boss rush banners as well. We're going to have a quick look at that. We're not going to talk about boss rush itself because I'm going to save that for Leon and Jack's banner video, but let's have a look at Setzer and see what he has to offer the party. So if you'd like to learn more about Setzer, then of course stay tuned and keep on watching. Of course, don't forget to check out all of my social media links in the description box below, including Twitter, Twitch, Discord, and Patreon. Over on Twitch, obviously, I stream 5 times a week, including every Dissidia Opera Omnia event as it comes out, though I still haven't managed to finish off the Equinox Lufenias just yet. I've only done the first one. So I'm going to find some time to do that as well. And then obviously, I stream a lot of Final Fantasy XIV as well. And the Final Fantasy Count-Up has also been reinstated, ready for YouTube, because I've started my 4-job Fiesta run for Final Fantasy V, which I'm going to try and run through pretty quickly because 4-job Fiesta ends at the end of August, so I haven't got an awful lot of time left to do that. But afterwards, I'm going to take a short break from Final Fantasy Count-Up before we return for Final Fantasy VI, on the back of the fact that Final Fantasy VI's Pixel Remaster shouldn't be too long before it comes out, so I'm going to wait for that so that we can play something completely new and experience it that way. Obviously, over on Patreon, I do shout out one of my patrons every time I release a new video, and today that person is going to be Sergeant Tuffy, who is a Thancred fan for, as you all know, I'm a massive Final Fantasy XIV fan, so I do love to shout out anyone who feels the same way. So thank you very much for your support, Sergeant Tuffy, and obviously thank you to all of my patrons as well. And if you're interested in becoming a patron yourself and getting lots of benefits like, being a part of Would You Pull, being a part of voice chats we all do together, having a title card just like Sergeant Tuffy has here to be put at the end of all of my videos, and lots of other benefits, and perhaps you'd like to consider joining up on that as well. Lastly, don't forget to check out all the other content creators out there for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia, and of course all the other resources there are out there for the game too. So let's take a look at Setzer and why people are so fussed about his banner over all else, regardless of whether the banner's been shifted about. And quite honestly, in my video about the issues I've been having with the game, I did speak quite a lot about the fact that banners being moved around and us not knowing the information can make some real issues for me as a content creator. But that's why I decided to release this video now, as opposed to later on, like after the video, or after the banner has come out, so that we don't end up with any confusion. But the banner originally in the JP version contained Setzer, his full kit, Waka, his full kit, and then obviously Tidus BT. So the fact that it had only 2 characters on there to begin with and no characters with their EXs only gives me the suggestion that there's going to be a BT on that banner for sure. Like, whether it's going to be Tidus or Una, I don't know. Whether it's the fact that when Josh said over on Discord, etc., Tidus wasn't necessarily going to be present on this banner because he said these are the only ones that Tidus will be featured on, was because he couldn't speak about Setzer because he hadn't actually technically been announced yet, or whether it's been delayed or not. We don't know. But the reason that I'm bringing it up in this portion of the video is that I find it very strange, the idea that Boss Rush, when it comes around, has a wave in it that is very clearly designed around Setzer. Like, you need to deal 10,000 bravery in one hit to these enemies in order for the Lufenia roll to tick up. Now, they have massive defenses, massive brave damage reduction, massive brave gain reduction, and all the bells and whistles. So realistically, the benefits granted by Setzer's LD is typically what you're clearly meant to use for that event. So I find it very odd, the fact that Setzer isn't there for Boss Rush. So if he's not there for Boss Rush, then there's no reason why he wouldn't have Tidus BT on it. But then if he has been pushed back and he has Una BT instead, it's very, very difficult for us to know exactly what's going on with this banner. So I'm treating it as if we had the JP version of it, even if that turns out we don't. So if the banner does come out as it is, then it's a very good value banner. Like, the fact that there's a second LD on there in Waka, even though he's not particularly chase-worthy, he's definitely still a nice one to have, but he doesn't get anything particularly new from this event, so I'm not going to be speaking about him and instead speaking exclusively about Setzer. And then if obviously Tidus BT does turn out to be on it, then this is a fantastic place to pick it up. Even if it does turn out that it's got Una on it instead, because I don't think that there's, I don't think that they'd put no BT on it. I really hope that that's not the case. But that's a great place to go for Una BT as well. In fact, Una will have quite a few banners. That's really good for her. So let's go into Setzer. Setzer does get a little bit of a rework as well, and people obviously focus very heavily on Setzer's LD effect, and I'll get to that. But Setzer's always actually been very good, and the primary reason for that is his Freeze Joker. Now, Freeze Joker inflicts freeze on all enemies for a couple of turns, which means that they can't gain bravery. And that's actually very powerful and very defensively oriented to make it so that there are certain times where they just can't do anything. Obviously, it's not quite as rare, or like effects like it aren't quite as rare as they once were. Like, we see a lot of characters that can go, like Reno and Cypher, that say, you can't deal damage to me, and things like that. But the fact that he still has Freeze Joker on top of everything else, this is not an ability to be ignored. It's very powerful, but you do still only get 3 uses of it, and you have to use it sparingly. But now it does a full AoE 100% HP damage, and it doesn't consume bravery either, which is quite nice. Like, a lot of Setzer's kit does make it so that he retains bravery in some manner or another, which is obviously very good for safety. Red card, also still actually a pretty good move, and benefits significantly from his other effects. So, red card gets a lot more skill uses. He gets 9 of these, so he doesn't have tons of skill uses across the board because of the rarity of Freeze Joker, but his Brave Plus is a 4-hit bravery, does HP damage if you're above 80% max hit bravery, so it can be used. It's not great, but it can be used. Or you can use his HP Plus, which is a single Brave HP, but he gains bravery afterwards. Red card, however, is a 3-hit Brave HP attack that hits 3 times, and then the rework of this is so he gains bravery back after each HP hit, similar to sort of like Seraphic Star or Meteor Crusher, but obviously on a much, much smaller scale. And it does delay by a turn, and it's got a high turn rate, which you have to kind of be careful of, like now and again. But it's still, the fact that it's got delay on it at all, the fact that it's got like multiple HP dumps is going to allow him to capitalize on what he gets from his LD effect as well. So it's still a really good move. Like, Setzer's entire kit is still really useful, but his LD is obviously the star of the show. So his C65 with 2 uses is just max bravery up. It's nothing particularly special. And his EX attack Prismatic Flash, back when it first came out, it was really quite something on the back of how quick its recast rate went up, and its recast rate is insanely fast. So like once you've got all the EX plus and everything on there, you're looking at like a skill and an HP plus to like recharge it. It's really, really fast, and it's a split AoE HP attack, Brave HP attack, but it also gives a like party battery equal to the highest bravery currently present in your party. So it's a really strong battery that you're getting like practically every other turn, and it increases his longevity quite significantly. And then Blackjack also gives party attack and max bravery up, which is also kind of nice. Now, Setzer's LD. Setzer's LD quite literally breaks the rules of the game. Now, we've luckily actually seen rainbow damage numbers already because of Core. Now, Core obviously doesn't do it frequently. He does it, every 10 times he uses his follow-up attacks or straight after he uses his LD. Now, Dive Bomb grants a buff to the party. It's a multi-Brave HP attack that does full AoE damage, and then you get the Fixed Dice buff. Now, the Fixed Dice buff makes it so that you get more party HP, well, more party attack, more party HP damage up, which is also fantastic, obviously. And then more max Brave Overflow and all of that good stuff as well. But what it does is it gives a chance to inflict rainbow damage with every bravery hit you have. Now, once you've got his LD boards and everything all sorted, he gets more uses of red card when he uses this, which is fantastic. He also gets this for 9 turns on himself and 6 turns to his party members. So what this is, why that's relevant is that the number of turns remaining on the fixed dice buff goes to show how much chance you have of your bravery hits turning into rainbow bravery hits. Now, rainbow bravery hits ignore all defenses. They will always deal capped damage, so whatever the cap your bravery damage is at, it will always be that, which is fantastic, obviously, for numerous reasons. But the fact that it ignores all resistances, all brave damage reductions, it literally breaks the game. Like, in its own way, it disobeys the rules of the game, and anything that does something that powerful cannot really be ignored. Now, 70% at more than 7 turns is only ever going to apply to Setzer, because he only gives it to himself for that long. But 50% at more than 4 turns is what your party members are likely going to benefit from most. 30% or 40% chance at 3 turns, 30% chance at 2 turns, 20% chance at 1 turn. So you're getting this buff for a significant portion of time, and bear in mind that it triggers for every bravery hit. It's not 50% chance that all of your bravery hits are going to be rainbow or not. It's 50% chance that each bravery hit is going to be rainbow damage. So if you're looking at characters that do a lot of bravery hits, and let's face it, any damage dealer worth their salt does a lot of bravery hits these days, this is going to trigger many times. And even if it didn't trigger like the whole way through, it's going to like break enemies through their defenses. You can take this to the likes of Kieran's Lost Chapter. Like, we have massive defenses, reduced bravery damage to 1. You're just like, nope, still gonna cap out. Don't really care. You do you. And then it is exceptional. And he is the kind of character that enables a lot of other characters, similarly to Core. Like, he enables a lot of other characters. And quite frankly, Setzer with Core is pretty disgusting on the back of the fact that now his follow-ups are doing rainbow damage because that's not ticking down the buff. So that's pretty scary. But like, I mean, Setzer just goes with everything, like, because he has defensive buffs as well. He doesn't have the best like brave HP pluses, and his, you know, red card having multiple HP dumps is great. His EX is fine, but like, you're using this to keep his longevity up more than anything. But you know, he does so many things well. Like, Freeze Joker can save your backside in a lot of ways. Red card has delay in it, so it's going to enable your party members a little bit more often. Prismatic Flash does have a strong battery to it. He has safety in his kit. He does a lot of different things, but the dive bomb, the fixed dice is very, very hard to ignore. There is so much to like about it. There's so much to, well, there's so much to dislike about it on the back of the fact that it's that kind of powerful. Like, I've mentioned like certain characters kind of trivializing things. Setzer definitely does that to a lot of different bosses. Another thing that's nice that comes out of the fixed dice buff for Setzer at the very least is that it also extends the debuffs that he inflicts by 1 turn, which means that his freeze debuff is actually going to last for 3 turns instead of 2. So the fact that you're able to kind of extend that for a little while does give you a little bit of breathing space. But obviously you only ever want to use this, or you Freeze Joker, when something scary that you know is coming along. And the same actually applies to the fixed buff dice buff itself. While you can just go off and just throw fixed dice out and just go crazy and like eliminate fights really quickly, there's nothing wrong with doing that. The real purpose of rainbow damage numbers is to counteract enemies that are really pushing their stats way through the roof so that you can't deal with them very easily, at least in any other way. So when you're using fixed dice, you don't get loads of uses of it. You get 4. I mean, you get 4. You get, like, you know, it does last for a long time. But it is quite easy for a character that takes a lot of turns. So we'll use Tidus, for example, to burn through that buff very quickly. So you just have to be careful how you're using fixed dice as opposed to just having it up all the time. And you want to be able to make sure that, you know, you're using it at the correct times, as the same as the rest of his kit, to be honest. So his EX is really fast charging, as we know, and so you can use that whenever that comes up, which doesn't take long. But Freeze Joker obviously doesn't have very many skill uses, therefore you're relying on Red Card. Now luckily, like I said, Red Card has lots of HP dumps in it, so it's going to work with fixed dice very well. But it's not bad on its own either. Bear in mind that he retains bravery after a lot of what he does. So you'd be able to use that, and if you're taking him with another support character with healing properties, for example, then you're going to be able to do a lot of work with him regardless of whether his LD buff is up or not. But that LD buff you can either use to just accelerate damage just as crazy as you want it to go, or you can use it for its intended purpose, which is to counterbalance enemies that buff themselves with massive defenses or brave damage reductions. So Setzer's core abilities and armor. Setzer's core abilities have actually always been pretty good, even though he hasn't had his LD until now, because Freeze Joker is a really powerful thing. Like, inflicting freeze by snapping your fingers and going, I'm nullifying your next 2 turns, that's really good. Just be very cautious of enemies that cleanse themselves frequently or like have ways of bypassing this, and then you'd be fine. Like, you could still use this a lot, like over the course of time. Like, it's still got a lot of defensive utility. Like, I mean, I'm using it in the Equinox event as we speak, and Setzer isn't even out yet. So it's still very, very useful. Dive Bomb is actually like only okay as a call ability. It does AoE full HP damage, so 10 hits of Brave HP, and then it gives party attack, max Brave Overflow, and party HP damage. I mean, 10% HP damage isn't to be sniffed at, but party attack up 20% and Brave Overflow 20%, it's fine. Like, I mean, the thing is, it's nice because it's a good kind of complementary thing to Freeze Joker. Once you're going on the offensive, you can use Dive Bomb, and then that way you've got a little bit more damage going out your way, and you know, and some of it's percentile based, which is really strong. It's, you know, Setzer's core abilities are as good as they've always been. He's just now got a little bit extra that he can add on top of it. And then in terms of his armor, Setzer has Unity Keystone. You're going to want this because if you're hitting bravery cap due to fixed dice with everything that you're doing, well, you're going to want that cap to be as high as you can get it, realistically. So Unity Keystone increases bravery party sort of break limits by 5%, and then it also increases like held bravery, so the party HP damage as well for him. And then Setzer's Coat Plus, so his HA Plus, increases party bravery limits by 15%. So that's also worth considering. Like, I personally, like, whether you need this or not is up to you, but it's definitely not a waste to give Setzer your ingots, because like I said, you're hitting cap with rainbow numbers. Better to make that cap as high as it can be so that you're dealing more damage. But you could also argue that if you're hitting often enough, then because like Setzer's Coat Plus only increases HP damage limit by 5%, you're not going to get that much more out of it in terms of how much damage you're actually dealing. So you could argue either way for this. I personally will at least give him a book. Like, I'll give him a book, get the ingot from it, and then I'll kind of decide later whether I want to get him or like whether I want to give him more or not, because I think that there are damage dealers that need it a lot more than he does. Even though, obviously, having the extra 15% bravery cap when you're always hitting cap is obviously very good. It's a question of whether it feels superfluous or not, and whether you're actually going to benefit all that much from it, because the HP damage limit doesn't go up that much higher. But, like I said, you could go either way on this. I don't think it's a waste to give your ingots to him, but I think that there are other characters that need it more than he does. So now it's time for the big question, seeing as I will be talking about Boss Rush in detail until we come to Jack and Leon's banner. But should you be pulling for Setzer? I think you all know the answer to this, realistically. There are very, very few reasons for me to, if any, to even begin to try to recommend against pulling for Setzer. He's just that good. He really is. Like, to be honest with you, obviously, we don't know what the banner is going to look like. We don't know whether it will have Tidus BT on it. We don't know whether it will have Uni BT on it. We don't know if it will have no BT on it. This banner could have no BT on it, and I would still pull here. Like, this coming from somebody who like recently sort of was like upset and annoyed by, you know, the fact that like the game becoming too easy in a lot of ways, and you know there's a lot of things that could be seen as boring, and Setzer definitely does fill that, and it's something to bear in mind. But what he does do, he does it in a nicer way than a character like Tidus does, because he enables other characters. Like the fixed dice buff is phenomenal. It really is. Like, it's literally rule breaking. Rainbow damage numbers, like we got the aperitif where we got with core. Now it's time for the main course. Like, we've seen how powerful it is. Ignoring defenses, bravery damage reductions, practically every mechanic that Lufenia throws at you to stop you from dealing damage, Setzer doesn't care about. The only way that they don't take capped damage from rainbow damage numbers is if they outright absorb the damage, like whether it's elemental or based on the damage type. Other than that, you're going to be hitting those rainbow numbers. And like with regards to the length of time that the buff is active for, it's active for long enough. Like, it really is. And you know that you'll be able to deal like catastrophic amounts of damage in a very short space of time, and you'll be able to counter a buttload of mechanics because of it as well. Now, I mean, Freeze Joker is also incredible, like it always has been since the very beginning of the game, because Setzer's a very old character at this point. But the enemies can still break your characters. They can't gain bravery, but they can still take yours away. But you know, with 3 turns of it, I don't know what they would do with with that break, unless it was a mechanic that, like, if I break, I then cleanse all my debuffs and do this thing, or it's going to make them have more turns that push them into their Lufenia orb, etc. Then you might want to worry about it. But honestly, I can't, in good conscience, not recommend pulling for Setzer. He's just fantastic, and even regardless of what banner he ends up on, I find it very unlikely that Waka wouldn't be there as well. I don't think they'd change it that much. If they change it at all, I don't know. Do not come for me in the comments. But Waka LD he's not a chase LD. He's not on the same level as Setzer. Like, if you got Setzer, you'd probably stop unless you really liked Waka. But, you know, it's still a great thing to have. What a great secondary prize. Like, he's still decent. He's still got a really nice LD call ability. His regular call's still pretty good. But this banner is honestly, like, one of the reasons that I always tell people to wait until the very last minute before they use their BT tokens or they go pitying a BT, because until we have all of the available information, it's very hard to sort of recommend how you spend your resources when it comes to BTs, because we just don't know. Now, yes, we can sit there and say, but it's been confirmed, it's been this, that, and the other, but I am a paranoid person, and until that banner is on my phone screen or on my stream screen, I will not budge either way on whether I'm going to use BT tokens until I know exactly what I'm going in for. But what I can tell you is Setzer is extraordinary. He has never been bad. That continues with his LD and then some. You're probably, like, if you want to make the game easier for yourself and you want the path of least resistance, Setzer is definitely a character that you're going to want. And then finally, it's time for Would You Pull, the section of the video where you, the viewer, get your chance to let your voice be heard and tell everybody whether you would or wouldn't pull on any given banner and why. So, this one's probably not going to come as much of a surprise to everybody. Now, obviously, a massive thank you goes out to my patrons for their votes and their comments, and if you would like a full access to the entire database of comments as they come about, then perhaps you'd like to consider becoming a patron and joining up on my Patreon lounge in Discord as well, where all of these are posted, because I can only post so many comments in one video without it going crazy. Now, these, like I said, this banner is not going to come as a surprise to anybody. So 40% of people said they're going in with gems, 49% of people said they were going in with 100 or more tickets, 11% of people said they were using less than 100 tickets, and nobody, despite the fact that we don't know exactly when or what this banner is going to contain, has said no. And that, I think, speaks volumes for quite how good Setzer is, because nobody from nearly 150 people have turned around and said, I'm not pulling on this banner, even though I don't know what's on it. Like, that should give you a good sense as to why people want Setzer, or how much they want him. So, we'll go into the comments. JRPG fan says, gonna take a gamble on the gambler and toss a few tickets his way. Setzer gets a neat new toy to play with, but if luck isn't favouring me, that's okay. Like so many characters, he has his time to be a rock star until the next shiny comes along. Not too fussed about which BT is along for the ride, if any, gasp. I always look at these as a bonus anyway, even when planning to where to try for them. Now, I think that this is fair on the back of the fact that, well, for two reasons. First of all, I actually really like the whole I'm going to spend tickets on this because Setzer is the gambler character and therefore I want to spend tickets to gamble for him. I know I probably shouldn't do that because whenever I've tried to do stuff like that, it never works out in my favour, but I might end up doing the same. But like the fact that you're not too fussed about getting him as well. I will reiterate this every time one of the big characters comes along. You don't have to have him. You don't have to. Not if there is no one character in this game that is mandatory. It all depends on party composition. So for example, with Boss Rush, if you have other ways of dealing with the Were-Tiger wave, which have these massive defenses, like then, you know, such as Sabin or Porum even can do it because gravity-based damage works as well, then there is always another option. The answer, the question you have to ask yourself is, do I have those options available to me? And does Setzer cover a wide array of options thanks to the things that he does? And the answer to that question is a big resounding yes. He is even more sort of relevant as Lufenia Plus comes along when damage reduction becomes even heavier and you can just ignore it. Like, there are a lot of applications for Setzer and his LD, and that's the thing to bear in mind. It's not about this character is busted, go get him. I mean, like, to a certain extent that's true, but equally you have to figure out when you're going to use him and why. And if that is completely dependent on what you currently have access to. For somebody in my position, could I live without Setzer? Yeah, I probably could. Do I want to? No. And then going on to the next comment, Doma Dragoon says, good old Setzer and the amazing Technicolor damage numbers. His banner mates could be two chocker blades and tied together and I'd still spend over 100. I'm not willing to commit to gems without knowing what else is there though. So, like I said, I've treated the banner as if it were its JP original, but I don't know. Like, I can't predict the future. I don't know anything behind closed doors. You know, I don't have a clue what's going to happen with this banner, nor do I know when it's going to drop. Like I said, the reason I wanted to release this video now is because what if he does drop, like, around Boss Rush time? Because, like I said, without him, Boss Rush is made significantly harder without very specific characters. So it does seem like a bit of an odd move to make without either changing the event or changing the timeline to suit Setzer. But I actually agree here. I would pull for Setzer even if he didn't have a BT on the banner. Like, I really would. But the fact that, like, Waka LD is probably on there as well means it's a value banner on top of the fact that Setzer happens to be fantastic. Atoy says, I was originally going to use gems as I understood Setzer's kit to be the next great thing and I wanted another shot on goal at Tidus BT. However, the uncertainty about what else is in the banner and the fact that I pulled Tidus BT on Rosewood tickets leaves me at a point of waiting to see what the banner is. Probably still gem, since his own kit didn't get worse, but I'm truly just waiting until it's live. This is exactly how I feel about it. Like, regardless of what else is on the banner, Setzer's not changed. Well, I hope not. I mean, Christ, if they change Setzer, that's a whole nother issue. But going off the idea that they haven't changed Setzer, and then, he's still incredible. He's still a fantastic character. But this is why it's prudent to keep a backlog of resources available so that in these situations where we don't know exactly what's going to happen, we can sort of prepare for the worst, as it were. And then finally, Sergeant Tuffy, who is today's featured patron as well, says, Setzer, in the spirit of respect for our resident gambler, I'll start with tickets. 50 to 100 or so, enough that my odds of obtaining the LD are left purely in the hands of chance itself. Setzer would want it no other way. That said, I'm more prepared to pivot to something more guaranteed and shift my pulling to gems if the tokens just turn up rabbits. The beauty of the roulette table aside, what good is it if you're not willing to ensure victory with your own two hands? I'm probably in the same boat as this. Cute commentary aside, Setzer is one of those units like Poro whose value is not immediately noticeable in the era of late Lufenia, where we're having very little issue hitting for max damage. He's a future investment for when Lufenia Plus comes to punch us in the nose with its brutal damage reduction, helping us bypass them altogether. Mandatory, as is the usual, no. People on JP skip Setzer and made do in Lufenia Plus without him. Will you be glad you have him? Almost certainly. Pretty much mirroring everything I said. Pretty much mirroring everything I've just said. Like, I honestly feel exactly the same way. I probably will even end up pulling the same way as Sergeant Tuffy here as well. I think that, and I would use him in late Lufenia, like, because I really enjoy Setzer, like, as a nostalgia thing as well. Like, I loved Setzer like back when like 35 CP Setzer was a thing and Freeze Joker was like the hot stuff. And the fact that he's kind of come back into his own is something I really enjoy. The only worry I have is that I'll have the same reaction to him as I did with Tidus, and I did not expect to have such a visceral reaction to how little I enjoyed Tidus after he got his LD in BT. So I'm really hoping that that doesn't happen to me with Setzer, and I'm sure it won't happen to other people, because it didn't happen to other people with Tidus either, and you know, that's the way that is. But I just kind of like, I really hope I enjoy him as much as I always have done. And even if I didn't, he's gonna make life really easy for me later down the line. So that's going to be all for today's video. Thank you all very much for watching. Let me know in the comments below whether you're pulling for Setzer or if you're not. I'm especially interested to find out from people, hear from people who aren't pulling for Setzer, because like I said, not a single vote against him in the in the polls there. You know, there's a few people who are willing to chance it, but as they've said, they're more willing to chance it based on the fact they don't know what the banner is. Where do you think Setzer is going to turn up? When do you think he's going to turn up? Do you think he's going to feature Tidus BT, Una BT, no BT? Let me know in the comments what you think. And that's going to be it from me. So thank you all again. And don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notification of future videos I might be making. And I will see you guys very soon. So take care, everyone. I'll see you soon. Bye.